Well, good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday to you. Hope everybody has had a good Monday. I mean, good old Mondays, right? It's like you got to get back into work, swing of work and doing all that, catch up and all that kind of stuff. And it always seems kind of stressful when you first get started, but hopefully you settled into it. Um, anyway, let me tell you a little bit about what I've been up to. This is not anything. This is actually going back to my live stream from last week where I went on about a camera and realized that my microphone was not working. So I went on probably for about 10 minutes about a certain camera that I've been kind of messing around with, and then it didn't even record it. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to share this again because it's kind of a unique camera, and it's just kind of tell you a little bit about what I'm into right now. And so before we get started, before I even share about the camera, welcome. And this is actually a podcast and a YouTube live show about real estate. That's what this is. But I'm going to be talking about a camera. So what I do here is I basically invite you in to drink some coffee with me, go through some real estate news, some things that are in the headlines in regards to specifically real estate. Sometimes we go into little areas of the news that maybe is not related to real estate, but it is overwhelmingly real estate related. So just know that going in that that's what we're going to be talking about today. What are we going to be talking about today? So again, before I get into the camera that I'm going to share with you, I am going to briefly mention interest rates because they kind of spiked up again. Unfortunately, we went up a little bit on the interest rate. It has everything to do with the Iranian war and all that kind of stuff. Then I will be going over a article here by Inman that talks about Google and Google kind of becoming like a image, like a Pinterest image area, like where they're mimicking what Pinterest is doing. So we're going to talk about that, but then we're going to make sure we put a spin on it that is very much real estate related. How real estate photos and stuff like that are getting noticed and what that looks like. And then we're going to go into an article here where it says, and I don't even know what this company is. It says Domain Marketing Hub. And it says real estate career realities, top agents share success secrets. And it'll be just a conversation that we can have kind of talking about real estate agents and what they find valuable and what they see that works. So we'll talk about that. And then if we have time, we'll go into a couple other ones here. We're going to talk about a court report where Compass targets Zillow with ethics complaints. We'll talk about a mega landlord accused of fair housing violations. We'll talk about those two things to wrap up the show. So that's what's coming. But before we get into that, because I always get a little bit of time for the show to kind of send out everywhere and get everybody kind of, tuning in and stuff like that. So let me tell you about a camera. So this is going to be a weird one. You guys know that maybe last week sometime I shared, some of my favorite cameras. So if you're into cameras, that maybe you'll be interested in this before we get started with the show. But most cameras are, they're digital in nature. You snap a photo and they're, everything's great. It's point and shoot. I got this weird camera and it's a Fujifilm, which I am a big Fujifilm fan. But let me tell you what this camera is. This camera is a Fujifilm X-Half. Fujifilm X-Half. Let me see if you guys can see that on TikTok. All right. Fujifilm X-Half. Now, it's a cool kind of retro looking camera, right? Looks kind of neat. But notice the screen. It's vertical. See that? It's got a vertical sensor on it. So to do the horizontal photos, like normally what you do with a camera to do vertical, right? You turn it this way. You would turn it this way and then snap the photo. Now this one is always vertical, but to do horizontal, you would flip it this way. So that's already one thing that's kind of weird about it. The next thing that's kind of weird about it is what it is. You basically turn it on, and notice that little thing pops out, kind of like the old school cameras, right? Where you pull this little lever and it preps the next photo, right? Winds the photo, and then the screen itself kind of looks like the old school, back end. Sorry, I'm trying to do two cameras at once, and it has this look. But then look over here at this thing. That is a screen as well. That what you do is it has pre-loaded film simulations in here, and you choose what film you want to use, and you don't have to do it in the traditional way. You can just select film and just use it as a digital camera, and this can turn into a screen and all that. But you can also put it into film mode. film mode basically means I have to select if I want 36 and so forth, like 36 shots. And that's what I've done here. There's 36 shots on this camera. I cannot look at the photos until I do all 36 shots. Once I do all 36 shots, I can put it in an app and develop it, whatever. Very gimmicky. Very gimmicky. Oh, Dior, hello. Yeah, don't leave. I'll say hi. I just missed it. I'm rambling. Thank you for being here. Thanks for tuning in. Just talking about a camera before we get into the actual show, just FYI. Ron from accounting, glad you were here. Name's Ron, welcome. So anyway, this is the camera. You take 36 shots, and then all of a sudden you develop on your phone. It's kind of neat. The thing that I find kind of cool about this camera, and I will say, it is very gimmicky. This is not for everybody. This is not like you're going to go out here and this is going to be your everyday carry at all. But it's a cool one because it makes you in the moment. It takes you into the moment where you're not using your phone. You have an actual camera, and this is the new craze, right? You take this camera, you just go around and you just take photos. You cannot see them, so you're in the moment. You're not losing the moment. You just snap a photo. You don't worry about what it looks like. You just move on. So you want to do a family photo or whatever, you take a photo, and who knows? So there's a little bit of an excitement that once you get done taking all these photos, you go back and you watch. It's kind of neat. The cool thing is like you can give this to like a kid or someone in your family, and they can go throughout the whole day taking photos. And then if you're like on vacation and you see it from their perspective, and then in the evening you can go and look at the photos. So very gimmicky, but kind of neat. Just kind of neat. It's something I'm kind of just messing around with right now. Give you a little bit of specs on this. Last time I did a camera thing, someone like they all read me in the comments because I misquoted a couple of things. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to read actually from the spec sheet. So the sensor is an 18 megapixel camera. It's nothing huge. It's got a 1-inch BSI CMOS sensor in it. So that's what it does. That's the stats of it. There's a 2.4-inch fixed vertical touchscreen LCD on the back. Its storage is SD, SDHC, and SDXC. So it does Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, and all that. So guys, I'm not saying I recommend this camera, but if you're looking for something a little more nostalgic, maybe like kind of like an old film camera, maybe that's kind of what this is. But very gimmicky, but kind of cool at the same time. So there you go. I'm into this. I'm taking some photos with it. I'm messing around with it. There's a little bit of insight about myself. I like photography. All right. With that being said, guys, before we get into the actual show, let's talk about interest rates. Oh, let's talk about interest rates. So yesterday we were like pretty low. I mean, well, we were lower than we have been in a little while. Today we're up. So here's the screen. 30-year fixed rate is 6.71. That's up 0.08%, almost a 0.1% from yesterday. 30-year FHA is 6.3, and the VA loan for 30 years 6.32. It went up. This is just the market we're in. It is what it is. Nothing we can do about it. We just got to make sure we understand it, communicate that with our clients and what that actually means. They're going to be asking questions. I guarantee you, headlines are going to be running, talking about interest rates being high again. It's negative publicity. We've got to be able to have a talk track that explains that the interest rate, is a cost factor in buying a home, but it's not the only one. We need to make sure we understand and explain to our clients that owning homes is still a very good option if you can do it. There's a lot more availability as far as controlling an asset if that is what you've done, and that's a great investment. So that's your interest rate for today. Sorry, guys. Just reporting on the news, not actually creating it. So 6.71, guys. We're up 0.08. All right. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started on the actual show today. And thank you guys for being here. Feel free, as I go through this, throw in the chat questions, comments, critiques, suggestions, that kind of stuff. Engagement is always fun. It creates, that's why I do live streams. I want to invite you in here to do this with me, not me just sitting here doing a dialogue. I want a monologue. I want a dialogue. So feel free. I will pause and talk to you guys in the chat. I love that. It makes it way more dynamic. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to the Real Estate Brief. I'm Adam. Today, we're going to be cutting through the noise. We're going to get to the truth in the news, look at the data, and I'm going to give you some of my observations and where I believe you can find opportunity. So if you're ready to gain your real estate edge, let's dive into our first story. This one is actually very interesting. I actually had already made the show up. I had already found the articles I was going to share. And then I got an email that literally came in like maybe 20 minutes before I went live. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. This one's an interesting one. Because we've been talking a little bit about Google and how Google has been entering into, and very carefully, I want to say this, entering into the portal wars. Not that they are going to be like the next Zillow, but there is the potential for this rollout of listings to show up in actual search results. And we talked about that. You can go back and watch that live stream. That's not what this article is about. But this article is about helping us understand what Google might be thinking in regards to images and what it's doing with those images, more in particularly that's more of interest to us as real estate agents. So as I was reading through this article, it was very interesting. They're rolling out kind of like this Pinterest style redesign to turn image search into a more visual discovery engine. So typically, right, you go in there, you type in a search, and you get all these search results, or AI does responses, and you can hit the images, and it would just display a bunch of images. Well, they're tweaking this just a little bit. And this article kind of highlights this change, but at the same time points you back to how this could be beneficial for us as real estate agents. So this is about Google becoming more like Pinterest, but there's a bit here that helps us to see it in the eyes of a realtor and see what that looks like. So let's go ahead and jump into this actual article, which I found kind of interesting. Google Images wants to be your new Pinterest. And then it says, plus podcast hosts, LinkedIn's reach, AI chatbots, and teen social media limits. There's a few different articles inside of this one, but we're going to hone in first and foremost on the Google image part. It says, ever wished the photos you post online could actually work harder for you? Google just gave image search a Pinterest-style makeover, which means the listing photos and staged rooms you share could start pulling their own weight in ways they never did before. So that is the premise. If our images are being analyzed by Google AI, which they are, then, and if Google changes the way that they display images is more along the lines of Pinterest. So let me just do this. I don't know if we can actually, we can just do a little test here live, right? We can go to Pinterest and we can kind of get a quick idea about the way it looks. Now, I don't have an account, so I cannot, I mean, I do have an account, but I don't remember what it is. It's just hit explore. Yeah. All right. So like if we wanted to go in here and type in, let's just type in real estate, okay? Real estate photography. That's fine. We're just trying to get an idea about what this looks like. Do I have to join? Well, anyway, I can't do it. I got to log in. I'm doing an incognito web browser and all that kind of stuff. But you get, I mean, most of you guys know what Pinterest is. It's got images on there and you can kind of see what that is. But Google apparently is starting to do that. So let's just do this. Let's just do this too. Let's go in here and type in, real estate photography. And then we go to images. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, maybe a remake. I don't know. But that's kind of what it looks like right now. So let's get into this article. Let's see. Snaps, magnetics. My Zestimate is $525. My ask is $535. Need to be under contract in 2 weeks. Should I lower to Zestimate? Okay. So let's just pause here. Good question, Nuznaps. So first of all, Zestimates historically have been very difficult and very inaccurate. Now they've gotten a little bit better because data's gotten better. So there is an element that could be the case, that it could very well be that the Zestimate is hitting a better price point for your property. That's plausible. But here's what I would say. And I don't know if this is the case. I don't know if you're a real estate agent, or it doesn't sound like it. Sounds like you're maybe doing this on your own. If you're listing property on your own, and yeah, I'll take a look. Absolutely. So the reality is like if you're doing it on your own, you're seller with agent. Okay, seller with agent. Well, in that case, I would go talk to your agent. One thing about the Zestimates will get you pretty close. They're using a lot of the same kind of data. But the problem with just going off of data, you don't necessarily have all the nuances of the location. It's only going to be looking at, the overall price selling and that kind of stuff across the region. It doesn't put into context, proximity to school, shopping, or anything like that could also be a valuable, asset to a buyer. It doesn't necessarily know all those nuances. So that's where the agent would have a better understanding, and they would be able to kind of understand more about your price. So yeah, I will absolutely take a look at that. If you want to like drop that in the chat or whatever, I can take a look at that property. You can also DM me and I can look at that and give you my critique. But again, if I'm not in your area, I won't know all those nuances. And that's where, and this is a whole AI conversation. And Zestimates now are using more and more AI. They just don't understand the nuances inside of pricing homes. And when it comes down to it, your home is worth what somebody's willing to pay. So the question I would ask back is, how long has the property been on the market and what kind of activity have you had? Your agent will be able to show you some stats and that kind of stuff. He said it at 575 and it's been sitting for 30 days. So I lowered it to 535. Oh yeah. I mean, yeah. So I don't know what area you're in. But if we go to average days on the market, the average days on the market is depending on the locale, right? It can range from anywhere from 20 to 40 days. That's the average time. If a property is, given condition of the home is good, it's move-in ready, that kind of stuff. Charleston, South Carolina. That's just, guys, this is a great conversation. This is good. Charleston, South Carolina, average days on market real estate. I didn't type that very good, but you get the idea. Okay, so you're, right now, given this is an AI model, downtown Charleston, median 47 days. Like I said, it's between those day ranges. North Charleston, median 43 days, 45 days. So the question I would ask back is, at what point did you lower it from 575 to 535 in that 30-day window? That would be my next question. Like where was it that it was then lowered? If it's just recently lowered, you might be close to the pricing that way. You just lowered it Friday. Okay, so you might need to give a little bit more time, maybe another week before you hit it again. Not rely so much on this estimate. Give it some time. So you did it Friday. We're going into the second weekend. The way I see it. So yeah, maybe ride out this next weekend and then revisit that. Maybe another $10,000 price drop would be relevant at that point. But I would talk to your realtor. Talk to them about what you're seeing there. But you're over those days, but you spent the 30 days at a higher price. And that's just kind of part of it. And let me say this too, just as an encouragement. We talk about this on the show a lot, is when we're going through a reset in a market, and that's what it is. It's like a rebalancing of the market. Everybody has a hard time pricing properties. There's not enough data to go from. You don't understand the buyer traffic. And even appraisers have a hard time appraising properties because of the lack of data. So this is not a knock against your real estate agent. Now, 575 to 535, that's an interesting price difference there. That one is kind of interesting. There's a massive difference. You still haven't sold it at that. So I don't know about that. But I will say, in a market where there's a shift and a rebalancing happening, it is very, very difficult for anybody to price things correctly. Because you're going off of what old data was. And that data is just not reliable anymore in a fast changing market. I mean, I don't know if you're here when I was talking about interest rates, but I mean, we went from, at point, right at 6.5, 6.6, and in the past week or two, we're up to 6.7. So that creates all this uncertainty in a buyer market. So even though we might have priced something, 30 days ago at this price, that interest rate, regardless if that is the main deciding factor or not, it weighs pretty heavy on a buyer's mind. It might dictate what they do or not, and then therefore the price needs to adjust accordingly to the fear that is kind of in the market. So it's just a really, really difficult thing to hit it. But I would wait, give it another week, see what happens, see what kind of activity you get. Have you had showings or anything like that since then? That would be the next kind of question there. But excellent questions. This is good. And this is a good conversation for consumers and even real estate agents. Like this is part of the job. Thank you for thanks Naps Magnetics for commenting and asking questions. It's good. All right, Google Images just went full Pinterest. You're welcome. You're welcome. Google has turned its image search into a scrollable inspiration feed, and it's hard not to see the Pinterest influence. The redesign adds a personalized For You gallery that updates continuously, plus a collections feature so users can save and organize images the same way Pinterest boards do. Okay, let's see. How do you do that? Tools, maybe? Maybe it's not rolled out all the way. I don't see that on here as an option, but let's continue. Maybe it's not all the way out yet. Google is also folding AI image generation directly into search results, letting users type a prompt and get a custom visual on the spot rather than leaving for a tool like ChatGPT. TechCrunch reporter Aisha Malik covered the update, noting the redesign is rolling out over the coming weeks on desktop in the US in English and requires a signed-in Google account to access. Okay, well, I won't be doing that on here just because I don't want to share my information like that. But it's rolling out, and maybe not out yet. But this is interesting because if what they're doing is true, if this is what's happening, the idea that you can go in there and create basically what Pinterest would do is like boards. You basically create these custom search results and custom visuals, and then you can save those links for later. That is basically Pinterest. That's basically what Pinterest is. So that is a response to that. So this is what it is. Now we got to start thinking like a real estate agent and what that means for us. And that's what the next question is. What this means for real estate professionals. It says, if your listing photos, staging photos, or neighborhood content end up in Google Images, this redesign could mean more discovery-driven traffic to those images. Similar to how Pinterest sends traffic back to blogs and websites, it is worth watching whether collections become a place buyers save home inspiration, which could make optimizing image alt text and file names even more valuable for search visibility. Lot to kind of unpack about this one. Nuznap says, what do you think about AI staged photos? I personally don't like it, even though some of our picks, setting yourself up for disappointment when they actually come to showing. Yeah, so again, this is a very good question in regards to even what we're talking about now, but Nuznaps is asking a very good question. These are great questions. So AI stage photos have a place. They have a place, but they are in a lot of ways overused. Nuznap, you're not wrong. Is if you are using staged photos to overall try to hook people into coming into that home and not being transparent what you're actually trying to do with those staged photos, there's a problem. In my opinion, AI staged photos have a place, and one of the best places that they serve a purpose in is showing somebody how to use a space that is a little difficult to set up. Like when you go into like a house that has like an open floor plan, one of the things that most agents have a hard time visualizing, or I'm sorry, the client has a hard time visualizing that these stage photos help with, is where to place furniture and what that would look like once they do. So like couches sometimes will block the dining area, or tables and chairs, where to position that in relation to where the TV's at. That's one of the biggest things. The other thing that stage photos are helping with is size of bedroom, because you can pick a king size bed and place it in the space, and it's got the measurements and dimensions to make it fit. So you can visualize spacing that way and see what it'll actually look like with your stuff in there. I think that's a great use case to help somebody understand the way a property could be used. It's not meant to say, here's what the house actually looks like. And that's the balancing act. Same thing could be said about removing too much clutter, too many things, or and also not paying attention to your photos, where you maybe have all this editing done with AI and then things are tweaked where it's a little bit off. I've seen that where stairs are places where they shouldn't be. And remember, AI is just computer algorithms going at play, and it causes problems. Yeah, and Michelle's very, very good. I don't like agents that do this and don't disclose it, and then here you get this slush green yard. Yeah. Then you get there, it looks like nothing like the pictures were. Yeah, Michelle, you're exactly right. And you're a real estate agent. You exactly know exactly what you're talking about. That's your experience. That's mine as well. I think it's a fine balancing act. I like using stage photos for what I just said, and then having the exact same photo that is that same that same room or whatever right beside it, and making it very clear that that is a stage photo. The goal of a stage photo is not to mislead. It should be to help the buyer understand best use case. That would be where I rest. That's the purpose of that. And then that goes back to what we're talking about with this article. When we start talking about Google and Pinterest and that kind of stuff, what we're talking about right now is the content that Google's going to be using. If you think about Pinterest, right? It's not about having your listing out there and all of a sudden people are just saving their listings in Pinterest. Maybe they are. But what they're actually doing is they're saving blogs or articles or videos that actually help them understand whatever it is they want to learn about or they find interesting, and they save it to a board. The same thing could be happening inside of Google. So what we're talking about now is content as real estate agents we should be making. We're talking about, stage photos versus non-stage photos. Well, that is a blog or a video that you guys can make. And then if Google is starting to do this like Pinterest type board, and let's say you have the two photos side by side of stage photo, non-stage photo, and you talk about what we just talked about, the benefits of using stage photos versus not, and you create a whole blog post about that, that is a pinnable, type blog or content. So that's using your real estate photos to talk through things on why you did it. That could be what people end up pinning because it's helpful to them. It helps them to understand things. So same thing goes with like your yards, like you mentioned the green yards and all that kind of stuff, talking about, sunsets and all that. Look, it's fine to kind of, green up something a little bit, add a little bit of color, make it look pretty. It's a whole other thing to be deceptive. Okay. That's the balancing act, but that's kind of the point here, right? It's like, if this is what's happening, how do we position ourselves as real estate agents to use our real estate photography that we're taking or having somebody else take to get our photos saved and searchable on Google? Now, this is all new. I will probably be doing more deep dives into this and what this actually looks like, but it's very interesting. Google is making some changes here. And if you really pay attention to what Google's actually doing, and this makes sense for their business model. Remember, they are an ad revenue company. People keep calling them a search company. That is not what they do. Their company, the way they make profit is by selling ads. The way they sell ads is making sure the viewership stays high. So if people are just going there doing searches, that does not keep people on their platform. So this makes sense why Google is looking at other ways to keep people on Google looking at their site and staying on there longer. So same thing goes with like our listing syndication through House Canary, that partnership. We talked about that a few weeks ago. You can go back and watch that video. And it goes right along with this. This makes absolute sense to me because like on Google, you can search for images. If you can search for images, why not have the ability to then save those images and into boards or collections that you're wanting to do? Kind of like you would save like bookmark websites. Why not do that? This makes perfect sense to me. So this is a good move on Google's part to keep people on one platform, using their platform and not going in and compartmentalizing all these different websites. Nuznas Magnetic says, we have one bedroom that was AI because it was empty. Disclaimer shows AI used. I didn't okay this. Well, yeah, so talk to your realtor about that one. You definitely have the right to say how you want your property to be represented. If you do not like that and you don't agree with that, I would have a simple conversation with your real estate agent that you would like to have that taken down. You don't want to have that in there. I can understand on the other side why they might have used it inside of that one bedroom because it was empty. But again, I would use it if it's helping to portray that property in the best use case, that room. I would say that's a good use case of it. But again, going back to what we said, it is overused sometimes. So that's just the balancing act of those things. Sometimes, people just get excited about new technology and we just embrace it all. And then it just doesn't actually appeal to the consumer. It's misleading because we get excited about technology. But anyway, I worry it blankets the house as AI. Yeah, I mean, it could. I mean, I understand that because AI, a lot of people are beginning to recognize when AI is used. That's becoming a very big thing. But to be honest, if it's just one room, I wouldn't worry about it too much as far as that's going. The goal is to, and this is something, it's a balancing act on the marketing side as well, is you only have like 1.5 seconds to stop a scroll online. It's a very short amount of time. So there is a marketing angle to kind of be a little slightly off that stops somebody from scrolling. So there could be a strategy there. Like if you really begin to back in the day, we used to be able to watch like in websites, heat maps. They would monitor like where mouses are scrolling and you'd see where heat maps are. And they would analyze those heat maps to see where you hovered over with your mouse and stayed for a while. And if you stayed on that spot for a long time, it would create more heat in that area. And therefore, when you go back and look at those analytics, you could see what maybe triggered somebody to kind of hover in that area longer than others. And so it's the same kind of concept with like tweaking that first photo of a real estate listing. It's like you're trying to be a little bit off and noticeable, not deceptive, but something to catch the buyer's and the consumer's eye to stop the scroll to then click. So that's kind of the game here. And it's a very weird game. Know this, that there is a lot of back end things that real estate agents do to market properties outside of just syndication. A good realtor is analyzing everything kind of they do and trying to get that property in front of as many eyes as possible. But at the same time, not just eyes, is trying to get them to engage with that. So they will instigate just weird kind of techniques sometimes to stop that scroll to trigger that click. And it's a very difficult game to play. And that is sometimes part of it. Nutstep says, maybe photos should be tagged AI real. Yeah, they should. Now, some MLSs, now that's a thing. This is coming more and more of a thing, is inside of most of your associations, your multi-listing services, the MLSs that agents are subscribed to, they have a lot of rules and regulations about AI. And that is becoming, it's not everywhere yet, but it's being rolled out where they will have to be tagged, where it becomes very clear that it's been altered in some way. Some MLSs require a banner or a tag on the top right corner or something like that denote AI, so that is kind of coming. So I would stay tuned. They're definitely trying to clean this up because people do not necessarily want to just see AI. They're beginning to recognize it even more. Great. Good stuff, guys. Good stuff. If your listing photos, staging photos or neighborhoods content end up in Google Images, this redesign could mean more discovery-driven traffic to those images, similar to how Pinterest sends traffic back to blogs and website. It is worth watching whether collections become a place buyers have save home inspiration, which could optimize image alt text. Now, that's the last point I wanted to make. I was trying to figure out, there's one more I wanted to make. It's the alt text and file names. So understand the way Google works, and this is happening right now. Matter of fact, let me just give you an example of how this actually works and how unreal this is. I just did that this morning, and you guys can put this to the test. I have a faucet in my house that is dripping, okay? Very simple fix, right? Go change the valve. Nothing big. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to just take a picture of that faucet, and I'm going to throw it into AI, and I opened up Gemini, and I said, what faucet is this? I need to replace the valve. Look at this. Let me show you what it did. This is how this works. All right. So if I open this up, I think I can find it. You might not be able to see it, but look at that. What brand of faucet is this? I need to replace the valve because it keeps dripping. Recommended valve details. It tells me exactly Delta Leland single hand pull down kitchen faucet, right? And then it goes down and says replacement valve details, replacement cartridge part number. Then it gives me the entire steps. Okay. Now, how did it do that? I just took a simple picture of my faucet and then sent it into Gemini, and it told me everything I needed to know. It even gave me the step-by-step instruction on how to replace it, even how to take the handle off. Everything I needed to know by one single picture. How did it know that? Well, it's analyzing every little detail in that photo. It knows I asked for a faucet, so it knows where the faucet is, so it can analyze that photo. It immediately identifies that photo. All right, because why? Well, it's taking that image, searching databases like Lowe's, Home Depot, whatever it might be, finding that exact image, and then reading the alt text in that image. And that alt text is going to tell you the name and the brand of that faucet. Then, because you've got now the AI's gotten that name brand, it now pulls up the actual product information, scans that, gives you all the details about that faucet because of that alt text. And then it gives you suggestions step by steps on how to replace it and where that valve is and the product number, because now it knows all the information. And this all happened within less than 10 seconds. Okay. That alt text is very, very important. It's very, very important for search. It can analyze a home. It can analyze a bedroom. It can analyze all those type of things. But if it doesn't have the alt text to associate that to something, then it doesn't know where to go from there, and it goes somewhere else. So when you're uploading photos to the MLS or anywhere else that syndicates out, put in that file name, property address or what it is, the company name, whatever it might be, something that is going to trigger. Think like a search algorithm, AI, searching that image and what could come up. Because if you take your time and you adjust that alt text, you have a chance to be in searchable on Google and showing up in those image search results. Okay. It's an amazing little cheat sheet. It's very fascinating. But this is where we're at with AI. It's unbelievable. All right. LinkedIn's cheat codes. This is a different topic. It says LinkedIn's cheat codes for reach and AI visibility. LinkedIn published a fresh checklist for what makes a post perform well. 2 to 3 posts weekly, a discussion sparking question, longer form updates, and creator replies to comments within the first hour. Consistency remains the through line, since regular posting signals to the algorithm that an account is worth surfacing, according to LinkedIn. This is talking about like how to get noticed on LinkedIn and stuff like that with an AI. So we're not. This is a whole different topic. Let's see if there's anything else in this article we want to talk about. I mean, this is interesting. A new report from Cumulus Media and Signal Hill Insights found that weekly podcast listeners rank podcast hosts as the most influential media figures in their lives, more than double the influence attributed to social media personalities. In the survey, 52% of respondents named podcast hosts as most influential, compared with 24% for social media influencers, 15% for TV and movie celebrities, and 10% for AM/FM radio hosts. I will. The report also found that YouTube continues to lead as the top podcast platform. I mean, that's what I'm doing here. But let me just pause for just a second. As great as that is, even for me, like what I'm doing here is kind of what they're talking about. But I will say this is with that, as neat as that is, that does cause a little bit of concern in me. It's like there's a little bit of a pressure now on me. It's like I need to make sure that what I am saying is very accurate. If that is the perception of podcasters and that kind of stuff, there's a responsibility there. And I actually understand why that's the case. I would fall into that same kind of category because we're talking about just real life stuff. We're speaking from actual personal experience, right? TV personalities and all these shows that are scripted, all that kind of stuff are just coming from, maybe trying to sell ads and clicks and all that kind of stuff. A lot of times your podcasters that they're talking from things that they're actually dealing with, like things they're actually going through. So it's more human, more relatable. You can connect with it. So that actually makes sense to me. It's like, that's why I listen to podcasts, because I'm listening to people that are recording their own personal life experiences. So because they're speaking from their own experience, I tend to say, well, yeah, what they are experiencing is probably more accurate than what the media is saying, what news personalities are telling me, what TV influencers are saying, all this type of stuff. So I actually get that. But it also comes with a major responsibility for anybody that does a podcast out there. I mean, if this is true, the burden's on us to be a little bit more careful with what we do say. All right, let's get into another article here. I thought I had one that kind of piggybacked off that, but we're going to jump into this conversation. This might be the only one we get to today. Let me just give you guys a heads up real quick. This will be the last live stream I have for a little while. So I'll be traveling the rest of this week to offices and stuff like that. I will not be able to be here in the morning to do this. And then all next week I will be out as well. So this is the last podcast or live stream that I want to have for a week and a half. So sorry guys. Again, this is just what I do when I have time. I love doing it. I wish I could do it more, but obviously I have responsibilities that are very, very important. People depend on me and I need to make sure I'm there for them. So it's just the nature of this, but just know another week and a half, I won't be here. So just a heads up. All right. This next article is coming from a website I've not actually ever pulled an article from. It showed up in my Google Trends reports that I kind of have syndicated to me just so I can kind of see what's going on. Yeah, actually, I did have another article about AI and discoverability by AI. That's okay. All right, we're going to jump into this article here. This one here is Real Estate Career Realities. Top agents share success secrets. Now, nothing in here is going to be like this big, like revolutionary thing. It's not like, oh, I never heard that before. This is like clickbait. Let's go to town on this. I'm going to apply this type of things. But these are things that we've got to keep in the forefront of our minds. Because we can get so caught up into all the new and trendy gadgets out there and miss what really is working. So that's why I pulled this article. It says, these top agents reveal the hard truths of a real estate career. So if you're out there and you think about getting a real estate license, this might be for you. If you're out there and you're working with a real estate agent like Nuznaps is, this kind of gives you some insight. And if you're a real estate agent out there that's been doing this for many years, this is just a reminder. It's for all of us, me included. All right, it says this. From the outside, real estate can look like a career built on big commissions, beautiful homes, and flexible hours. Oh boy, if only. Oh man. But experienced agents say success depends as much on self-discipline as sales ability. We all know that's true. It's also about difficult conversations, emotional resilience, and helping clients navigate some of life's biggest moments. Boy, in that sentence right there, there's a lot to unpack. One of the things that I have commonly ran into when I talk to people wanting to get into real estate, they ask questions like, they'll ask things like, "Oh, I just love houses and I just always want to be real estate. Isn't it great that you guys get to go in homes all the time?" And I'm always like, "Yeah, that's great. It's not the job. Oh, you get to work with all these great people that are wanting to sell their house, or oh, the first time home buyer that just, oh, they're so full of zeal, they want to go buy a house." And yep, that's part of it, but it's really not the job. Like, I have to be the realist. It's like when I meet with somebody that's all excited about getting real estate, I've always wanted, this is my dream. And I'm not trying to be the realist that wants to dash their dreams, because there is a lot of benefits to being a real estate agent. You as real estate agents out there, you probably do love your job. It's a great job. Some of what this sentence says is true. But in the reality of it, though, it's not necessarily true that what I'm talking about is the case. Matter of fact, you have most often very, very difficult conversations. They are tough. When you start talking to an estate sale and you've got 4 or 5 people named in the estate sale and you've got to try to bring them all together to come to the meeting of the minds, and then you insert a buyer into that property, and now you got all this stuff going on, trust me, those are some difficult conversations. When you're dealing with somebody going through divorce that are not quite divorced yet, and they're trying to sell the property, you can only imagine the difficult conversations you'll have in that scenario. When you start talking about somebody moving from one side of the country to the other, not knowing the culture or whatever's going on there, and having some, communication difficulties between the parties because they communicate differently, and trying to keep everybody together to get all the way to closing, that's difficult conversations, right? Emotional resilience. Yeah. Let me tell you this. You are dealing with clients that are at the height of their emotion. Okay, they are stressed to the max. They're doing something. There are 2 things that are happening there. They're doing something they hardly ever done or have never done before. And then secondly, it's it's the largest expense of their life. So they're investing hundreds of thousands of dollars into something. And there is stress all around. So the people you're dealing with are going to be doing things they would not normally do. They're going to be saying things they would not normally say. And as an agent, you can't get emotional with them. You have got to stay neutral. You also can't judge them. You can't form your opinion about them. You might be able to gripe to your broker or fellow agents about, I'm just doing this really difficult client. We all do that. But the reality is, you're dealing with somebody that is not in their normal state. And they deserve a lot of grace. They deserve it. It's very difficult. It's very scary. It's very emotional. You then in turn cannot be likewise. You can't do it. And so you have got to be resilient and strong, be able to hold your ground, be the calm, speak the truth, right? Have the difficult conversations, but at the same time, let them be irrational. You don't get to be. You don't get to be. Helping clients navigate some of life's biggest moments. We talked about that. All right, the very first one here is there are no guardrails. The biggest surprise Paul's property agents director Ben Pike had when he started in real estate 23 years ago was how much freedom he had to manage his own time. He says this, quote, "You don't have a lot of guardrails. So if you aren't disciplined, structured, and motivated, it's really easy to go to work for 10 hours and achieve nothing." He goes on, "You don't really have someone to monitor you or keep you on the straight and narrow. There's no one micromanaging you." This is a pause here. I hear this all the time. When new agents are coming into the brokerage, they are most often coming from a 9-to-5 type of job or no job at all, and they expect everything just to kind of fall in their lap, and they're going to make thousands and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, and that we are going to, as a brokerage, provide them everything they need to build that business. And that is not the case. Brokerages do have all kinds of support, but no brokerage is going to force their agents. Almost all of them, 99% of all agents are individual contractors. They are in charge of their own business, not the brokerage. So if that's the case, it's important for the agent to understand that they have started a business and they've got to start thinking like a business owner. If they want to grow and be better at their jobs and they want to be disciplined, all that kind of stuff, they are going to be growing a business, and it takes time. There is no guardrails. There is laws and regulations you got to adhere to, but there's not a brokerage out there that's going to force you to do anything. There might be, but it's going to come at a cost. This is you starting a business. You got to be self-motivated. You got to be structured. You got to be disciplined. You got to make things happen. No one else is going to do that for you. You got to do it. All right, next one. Being busy isn't the same as being productive. Oh, man. Yeah. Money-making activities and money-draining activities, okay? There's two things you could be doing. It says, however, a wake-up call came when it was time to buy his partner an engagement ring, and he couldn't afford it. It says this, quote, I realized there was a big gap between being at work and doing the work, he explains. I was busy being busy, but I wasn't busy doing the right things. Quote, so I decided when I was at work, I was only doing work. There would be no coffee, no lunch breaks, no talking at the water cooler. In 18 months, I turned it all around. And within 2 years, I was the best agent in the office. Basically, he just came to realize like there's a lot of things you could do that does not make you money. And there's actually a list out there that talks about money-making activities. We might go over that one day. Money-making activities and then time-sucking and money-sucking activities. And a lot of times things in that category are the ones you delegate off or you hire an assistant for once you reach a certain level. But those are things you set a specific time every single day or once a week to do. And then the rest of the things is your money-making activities. And if I want to dumb that down, let me tell you, the money-making activities, prospecting, networking, relationship building. That should be 90% of what you're doing. 100%. The other 10% should be the paperwork, that kind of stuff. All right. Maybe we'll go 70, maybe 80, and 20% of that, got 10% showings and that kind of stuff, listings, but whatever. That's connecting with people. I put that in the money-making category, but still sometimes we can get wasting our time in those areas as well. Right. So money-making activities, prospecting, referral business, relationships, networking, those type of things, those all make you money. Next one, no one else is going to motivate you. Nope. Pike notes you have to want to achieve success for yourself. You need to do it for you. No one will push you or drive you. You've got to own it. I see this all the time. If I put this into, I coach cross country and track and field. There are kids that show up that you have to try to just force them to run. All right. You might have the perfect plan laid out. You have the perfect practice plan, everything. And I lay it out and say, you've got to do all this kind of stuff. And they just don't do it. Or they do it and they halfway do it. There is literally nothing a coach can do to self-motivate that individual runner to being able to run. The other side of it, you get a kid that shows up, you give them the plan, and they don't want to do anything less than what's been planned. And sometimes you got to pull them back and say, whoa, that's enough. You need to rest. We don't want to overdo it because you're going to get injured. So that's the same thing in all aspects of life. It's absolutely true in real estate. You're building a business. You got to be self-motivated, period. It only comes down to you. No leader, no coach, no anybody. You can throw money at the coach all day long online and have his online coaches. But if you are not self-motivated, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. You got to be motivated to do it. The best opportunities can be the ones everyone else overlooks. Pike says new agents often chase prestige markets, but success can also come from overlooked niches. I noticed quite early on that no one wanted to deal with first-time buyers or sell apartments. So we decided to own that space in the market. A lot of my clientele still come from those days working with all the people who no one wanted to service. Man, guys, I see this a lot. I see a lot of agents, they get rooted in to thinking they are going to be a luxury agent, or I'm only going to work with this type of clientele. This is absolutely true for if you're a new agent. You should go wherever the opportunity is, period. Do not niche down. You seek out all opportunities and you find the most unserviced area in your industry and in your market, and you commit full into that. Full into that. If there's an area that you notice inside of your office that agents just say, oh, I don't like going there. Oh, I don't want to work that area. Oh, those people never sell anything. Oh, it's not worth the time. You go there. If your sales are slumping and you're even an experienced agent, you don't have sales, lower the pride, get out there and go after the part where nobody else wants to go. Okay? There's money there. Like I have seen agents that top multi-million-dollar producers, when the market tanks, whatever, they go out, they get short sales, foreclosures, they work anything and everything, property, trailers, you name it, they go after and they get it. It's a cash flow for them. They do not care. They will last the long haul in this. It's a lifestyle, not a 9 to 5. Very, very true. One of the biggest adjustments for Marshall White, director of Sarah Wood, was realizing real estate wasn't a job you simply switch off from at the end of the day. It is very much a lifestyle, she says. You're very much always on and always need to be available for your clients. Rather than expecting traditional office hours, Wood says new agents should embrace the flexibility while recognizing that buyers and sellers often need them outside the typical working day. She goes on to say this: I've had to do sales on Saturday night at 11 p.m. and then at 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning. I'm trying to bring things together, she says. You just have to be available when things are taking place. Now here's the thing. I don't disagree with as far as being ready and like you're not going to work a traditional 9 to 5. I understand what she's saying here, and she's not wrong on the surface. But at the same time, on my experience too, 20 plus years of real estate, there's a fine balancing act that needs to happen here. You definitely need to think of this as more of a lifestyle. This is not, I'm going to go work at 9 to 5 and be off at 5 o'clock every single day. You are going to be working late nights. You're going to be working weekends. Absolutely all true. But you do need to set some time management guardrails for yourself, though. And one that I always said is I never worked on a Sunday morning. I go to church. I would never do that. That is a priority. I'm with my family. I don't do that. I also have a job where it is flexible. And there are some non-negotiables that were more important than even making the next sale. And I have found when I communicate correctly with my clients, they would understand that. And case in point would be this: I'm not just going to freely just give away my time because I don't want a 9 to 5 job. Okay. I understand it's a lifestyle, but there are some guardrails you need to put in place. And one of the ones I would do is I would tell my clients, like, look, I'm available for you as much as possible. But the reality is there's some non-negotiables in my life that you need to understand that I will not negotiate on. And here they are. I won't negotiate on going to church. If you need me on Sunday morning, I'll find another agent to take you out, but that's something I will not be doing. And secondly, if my wife or my kids have something going on, I am going to be there. I'm going to be there. So understand that those are my criteria. Are you still willing to work with me? And here's the thing. When I communicated that with my clients up front, they actually respected that. And they understood that. So then when I said, when they text me and say, hey, Adam, can you go show us this house in 10 minutes? And I was at a kid's cross-country meet or track meet or whatever, and I simply text back, I'm sorry, I'm at my kid's track meet. I had already set the stage of that relationship. They respected that. Now I would always say, if you really need to see that, because I don't want you to lose out on this home, I can find another agent to show that to you. So I was always willing to help figure out another alternative for them. But almost every single time they respected that. So I understand the premise of this statement. I don't disagree with it. You got to be willing to work all kinds of weird, crazy hours. But I also think you need to set some guardrails in there as well. I think there's a balancing act there because I can see agents just giving away their time freely all the time. And it leads to burnout, depression, everything, anxiety, everything else. They're chasing the rat race and it's very dangerous. So I agree, but I also push back. You're building relationships, not just selling houses. While many new agents focus on properties and sales results, Wood says lasting success comes from putting people first. Real estate is actually 100% about people and relationships, she says. The houses are very, very secondary. Wood says building trust, managing expectations, and delivering a positive experience should always take priority over chasing the next sale. If you do, and she says this, if you do the right thing by people, that's when you generally build a good business, she says. This is the long-term play. This is the long-term play. If you are thinking of being in this industry for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, you are focused on relationships first. You know, if the deal is going south, whatever, you are focused on the welfare of your client that you're representing. You want to maintain that relationship because you want referrals, but you also value that person themselves. So that is very important. That is the foundation of building a real estate business and in any kind of sales industry, You'll spend as much time delivering bad news as good, if not more. I added that, if not more. While successful sales often grab the headlines, Coastal Upper Chimera agent Bianca Basil says no one told her how often she'd need to deliver bad news to clients. Everyone talks about and celebrates the good news and the record sales, but behind the scenes, it's about how many times you need to handle unwanted news or bad news, she says. Look, guys, it's so true. All you hear is all the good stuff. Like you just hear how great it is that you see all the posts on social media. I sold this house. I sold this. You don't see all the the difficult stuff you had to go through to get to that point and all the bad news. There is a lot. This is just being real. There is a ton of difficulties and a lot of news you have to deliver that is just not good. Okay? It can be very, very difficult. Whether it's a buyer pulling out at the last minute, an offer falling short of expectations, or a sale unraveling. I just realized I've not been sharing my screen. Or a sale unraveling unexpectedly. Basile says agents need to deliver bad news quickly and honestly. Yeah, don't delay. It says don't delay passing on information to a vendor. Do not delay it. You get information, you pass it on immediately, you move on. When you start in the industry, you want those listings and you want to keep sellers happy, but the most important thing is to be upfront, honest, and clear. All right, final one. You don't have to have all the answers. Now, this is the one that gets agents into trouble the most, is because you have a license, you feel like you have to be the professional in every situation and you have to answer every situation. That is not true. That is not true. And you've heard this many times. In any other profession, a true professional knows where to go get the answers, even if they don't have them. And that is a professional. So that right there is where agents fall into trouble all of the time. It's also where we're warned all the time in continuing education that we practice law, because we start giving legal advice. We start advising them what's best for them legally. And so we fall into major, major traps when we try to speak for all industries because we're trying to represent our client well. We fall into some major traps. And this is a big risk. It's very, very true. When you first start out in the industry, you think you need the answer. Yeah. Another lesson Basile wishes she learned earlier is that great agents don't have to have all the answers. She says this: when you're first starting in the industry, you think you need to answer every question and be the solver of all problems, she says. Instead, she encourages new agents to recognize where their expertise ends and seek advice from other professionals when needed, whether that's referring legal questions to a solicitor or directing clients to counsel about planning or subdivision rules. And she ends with this: sometimes it's okay to say, no, I don't think this is in my jurisdiction. You know, this goes back to a really good continuing education educator we had here in our state many years ago. He would say, your response sometimes as a real estate agent should be, you're asking me? In other words, put it back on them like, why are you asking me something about septic tanks? Or why are you asking me about some kind of electrical? Why are you asking me about like what your legal rights are? You're asking me? Like, that's not my field. So let me give you some list of some names of people you can call to kind of get an answer to that. Or I will call and find out from somebody else that knows this, right? That's a true professional. It's not going in there and just having the answer to everything. It's being able to go out and find the answer and navigate those difficult questions that you might not know. Do not speak on things you do not know. Don't do it. You will get into trouble every time. I mean, any lawsuit we've ever been in, as far as, you know, being grouped in, is because the agent misspoke, right? That's usually what happens. So don't do it. Don't do it. All right, guys. It's at the end of the show, guys. And like I said, this is the last live stream for about a week and a half. I'll be traveling and stuff like that, so I will not be on here at all. So miss you guys. I do hope and pray that you guys have a successful, week, and next week you do things well. You probably see some shorts pop up, that kind of stuff. Please engage, share. If this gave you any kind of value, consider sharing this to some of your real estate friends or consumers that maybe this will be helpful for them. And obviously consider subscribing, all that kind of stuff. I greatly appreciate that. I do value your guys' time. Thank you for being here, and do appreciate all the comments and communication. Nuznaps Magnetics, thank you. Greatly appreciate you asking questions. That was good. That's a fruitful conversation for all of us to talk about. Michelle, thank you for your comments as well. Talking about just AI photos and that kind of stuff. It's good. This is helpful. We're a community of agents and even consumers that are asking questions. And sometimes you just need a place to do that and discuss things. And hopefully that's what we can do here. I greatly appreciate that, guys. Like I said, we'll see you guys in about a week and a half. That is your real estate brief for today. If you found this helpful, please consider hitting the like button to tell YouTube you would like to see more of this type of content. Consider subscribing. Follow me on TikTok to join a community of real estate agents that are focused on building a business that is relationship focused first. That is it for today. We'll see you guys in a week and a half. Take care. Appreciate you guys greatly.